This video is about the Spanish-American War. The war was fought from April to August 1898. It began with declarations of war and ended in the Protocol of Peace between Spain and the United States. By the end of the 19th century, Spain was actually not in good form. There was simply a lack of economic, political and military reforms. Furthermore, Spain faced independence movements in the last colonies in the Caribbean and the Pacific. And it was not only independence movements, it was actually military conflicts. The United States, on the contrary, were economically quite strong and had economic interests in Asia with emerging markets. The Chinese market was just opening. And also in the Caribbean, Cuba, where the US was already heavily invested. The majority of the US population supported the Cuban independence movement, even comparing it with their own struggle for independence against the British more than 100 years earlier. Now, the events leading to the war, the US Navy sent the USS Maine to Havana, officially a friendly visit, but you can imagine the Spaniards were not happy to see a US warship arriving. The US Maine sank after an explosion, and to this day it's not clarified what caused the explosion. Anyway, that accelerated things, and the US Congress issued a resolution demanding the Cuban independence and authorized military means. That was enough now for the Spaniards, and they declared war on the United States. Firstly, a look at the Pacific theater. On the 1st of May, a US squadron took out the entire Spanish fleet, so naval supremacy was secured. Guam could be taken without any bloodshed. The Spanish forces on Guam simply did not know that there was war. The news did not reach Guam, and when the US ships arrived, they fired their guns. The Spaniards were actually embarrassed. They thought it is a salute, and they were embarrassed that they were not prepared to answer. The decisive battle in the end was then the Battle of Manila. The US won, but there's a theory that this battle was staged, that the Spaniards and the US just wanted to keep the local rebels out of the fight. As before that, the Spaniards had realized we have no chance against superior US forces. It should be mentioned that there was a German engagement. Germany was sympathetic with Spain and sent a cruiser squadron just as a show of force. No shot was fired, but this is so-called Manila incident caused severe diplomatic tensions between the United States and Germany. Now the Caribbean. All attempts to gain control over Puerto Rico failed because the Spanish actually took up a stiff resistance. Totally different story on Cuba. The US Marines could take over Guantanamo Bay, and then their troops landed southeast of Santiago de Cuba. The legendary Battle of San Juan Hill, with also the legendary Rough Riders of Roosevelt's legendary Rough Riders. US victory, and then the US forces laid siege on Cuba, Santiago de Cuba. On the 3rd of July, the Navy defeated the Spanish Atlantic Fleet, and now the situation was hopeless for the Spaniards in the Caribbean, and they realized we have to give up. Sign of the Protocols of Peace in Washington means the war is over. Now, there were some territorial changes. The US gained the Philippines for $20 million, Guam and Puerto Rico from Spain, and Cuba gained independence. Now, that meant for Spain, now definitely the Spanish Empire is lost. But also led that the Spaniards realized, okay, we have to undertake societal and political reforms, a reorientation in Spain. Now the US became a colonial power, having colonies now with the Philippines, but also they could now fulfill their economic plans, their expansion to Asia and the Caribbean. Cuba gained independence, but the US remained the right to unilaterally intervene. Puerto Rico became a US overseas territory. The Philippines wanted to be independent. That was nothing. Now they were a US colony until 1946. That was the Spanish-American War in 5.